So hi everybody and welcome back to this C++ tutorial series for absolute beginners. This is video 241, and in this video we continue with inheritance. In my last video I made an introduction. I hope you understand it. It's very basic, very simple, and now we want to do the same thing but in C++. So we are going to coding, we converting all that kind what we watched in the last video to C++. Here again, this is the page which we are watching later a little bit more in detail. We start here with this line here, the first one, which is just a very basic understanding, and this kind of stuff we will do now in C++, but you can already see here, you create a base class, you derive it the base class, and all what you do is actually adding this little colon and the name from the class which you derive. So the same thing I do now in C++, and we repeat fast what we learned so far. I hope you know how to create a class by now, because we stopped at the classes. We try to understand a little bit classes a little bit more in detail. So here's a very basic class. We start with the class house. Here, variables. I created here some variables. We start all time with private, and then we have a constructor. This constructor what I have here is absolute not needed, but I just wrote it in. We know when we have nothing to assign, we can use the default constructor, and then we have here functions. Again, we have be careful about this access specifiers. If we want it make public or private, we start all time with private because we make only public if it's necessary, so that we have later no much to work if there is a bug or when we rework or something like that. And yeah, you can see it's a very pretty simple class, very easy, nothing difficult. And you can see here also I made this 3 variables and 3 functions, which is representing actually my house here, my door, my window, and the roof. And like I said in my first video in the introduction, now I want to extend it. I will specialize this, and how we specialize this I showed you here. We have here again 2 ways. One is you just open up the one class and extend it in here in turn, or we use inheritance. You create the base class, which we have created here, and then you create another class. So inheritance means just creating another class and use this little inheritance symbol, which I showed you here in the definition. It is just this little colon. This colon after the creating a class or struct. We know struct and class are very similar. There's little difference, careful about them, but they are very similar. And here you can see this little colon means here after the name of the class or struct, you want inherit. And from where you want inherit, you have just to specify the class. They want inherit from base. I want inherit from my house, and I show you now how I inherit from my house, which means I just create another class, but this time I specialize. Because why is this a specialization? Let's watch this again, because that's very important. The base class, like I said, a house has more things in common. So you can see this is a hotel, this is a family house, but both has in common, yes, they have doors, they have windows, they have a roof kind. But when we compare now the hotel specialization and the family house, they have something not in common. What is not in common? A hotel has the functionality that people goes in, lives there for some days or weeks, leaves. In a family house, people live there too, but they live many years there, not like a hotel. So there is a difference. And when we start to make a difference, we create new classes in a when we inherit. And when we inherit and create these new classes, we specialize this also with this name, so we know exactly what the specialization is. This is a hotel, this is a family house, and you can see I made this here too, and there is nothing. It's exactly a normal class. And the only difference is this little add here, which indicates I inherit from something. Again, normal variable declaration. We have a constructor, we have public variables or functions, in this case even a getter, and all things looks like a normal class what we learned so far. The only little difference is this one. So, and that's why I said inheritance is in general very easy. You add this one and you already inherited. And we can test this. Let's test this. How we test this here. I created my house. the house, the first class here. Let's make this so now. You can see this house, like a normal class, we create an object, the class becomes our type, then we choose a variable name, and then we can print this out. We can call here with the access specifier, because I am using not a pointer, that's why I have this dots access specifier, and then I call that what I need. So absolute behaves, the first one behaves absolute like a normal class because it is a normal class. The second one is the one which inherited from the first class, and when we watch this one too, this is the same. You use the hotel like our type again, you use again a variable name which is descriptive. Don't make a mistake like all time. I have to mention this all time again. This one is a demonstration, very good for demonstration purposes, makes sense, but in real programming all time use descriptive names, because in real programming they would kick you or not hire you or classify your code as bad if it's not descriptive. So with that said, let's go on, and of course comment you. I have not commented in this code. Don't forget to comment your code as well in real programming, but I skipped this part. Let's continue. So you can see that this hotel, my hotel here, is my inherited class, right? But it's the same like a normal class. And you can see here in my second one, I use just the object name. I use again the dot specifier, and then I use here from the class here this public function. So now, so far all fine, but now comes something what I told you which is not right. So in my introduction video, let's go here, I said if you create a class hotel, if you inherit from the first one, you just have to write here only the new things and this little inheritance, which was this little part here. This is here this indicator that you inherited. And you have now, when you write this little indicator that you inherited, you have access now to all this kind of stuff. That was what I told you. But that's not right, at least let's say so. It is right, but I also told you there are special rules, right? And here they come in. We start. We learned how to inherit. This is the only thing what you need, this colon and the base class. But now we need a little bit learning some special rules. And what I mean with that is, let's go to this object here. That was this hotel what I created. And I told you, right, when you inherit, you have access to all base class. Let's see. I made this my object. I made a dot. And when I watch it, I have only access to my hotel class which I created, right? So you can see this is only this one. I have not access to this one, and the reason for that is because there are some access specifier for inheritance which we have to learn. So we go to this page, we scroll a little bit down, we will talk about virtual, we skip this later, we will talk about this. We start first with public inheritance. So again, we know this word public. This is one of this access specifier. Then we go scroll down, protected inheritance. This is the new access specifier which we have not talked so far, because this becomes interesting with inheritance and derivative classes. And private inheritance, we know private. So private and public, we know. This one we have to learn. And now we have to learn how to use that with inheritance. And the good news, it's very easy. You have to learn it one time, understand it one time properly, and we know it. So we will talk this a little bit more in detail, but before that I want to show you what I mean. So this one here, this inheritance place where we say we have to specify exactly one of these words, private, protected, or public, and then we have access. Depends on that. But before we do this, wait a minute, why I have here no access specifier? So This is the thing what we learned, but here, in this case, I have no access specifier. Here's no public, here is no protected, here's no private, and so on. This can happen too, and you will see this in sometimes in many places. That's why I say you, which is very important. What here's also a special rule. If you see here no access specifier for inheritance, you the inheritance part here will all time check your class. Check your the class in where it is, and say this is a class. And by default, a class has what? Private access specifier. So this one here will treat it as private house. So it's not written here, but this one will be treated as private. But important, careful. And now again, this is also something at start what many make wrong. I think I made this at start also a little bit wrong, which was this private here. You are not watching the house class specifier, so the house class here. You have to watch the created class. For example, here in this case, hotel is a class. This is a class. This will be private if there is nothing written in front. That's very important. To make it a little bit more understandable, let me change it to struct. And we learned that a struct, it's similar to a class, but I say similar because there are little difference, and this one is a difference. We know what is the default access specifier for a struct. It is public. So in real, here it says public house. How we can test this? So I delete this again. This is the thing like before class, right? Now I go here down and look what happens. I have access to the house public things. You can see I have access now because this is the first little rule which we have to learn. We start with this one. If you see no access specifier, you have all time check which access specifier this created class or struct has. Class has private by default. That's why we have no access here. Struct has public by default. That's why I had access here. And this is the first rule. And now, to make it easier actually, because that's a little bit more complicated, to make it easier, it is better to write here what you want. So you say, I want public. So this one here, if this one is struct or class, this one will be overwritten, which means if I write here public now, you can see I can go here down, and now I have public access. You can see it is better, easier to write what you want, but there are many cases they are not writing. For example, let's go to their example here again. Here, that was their example, right? This little example, it looks very easy. It's easy. But here, they are not writing this this access specifier, and you have to know what the default access specifier for this one is, right? The same thing they are doing here. You have to check again this one here. It's easier to write if this is public, protected, or private. And in the next video we dive more into this one, because these are the sections where we go and I make the examples and how they behave a little bit, right? It's just a little bit behavior. You can check this. This can a little bit irritating sometimes, but when you go used to it, very easy. And then we will go to virtual, and then we will go a little bit more to constructors as well. The constructors are interesting in inheritance, and there are special rules and so on later on. So with that little introduction to C++ inheritance, I hope it was not too difficult. And in the next video, like I said, we dive into. If you have any questions like all time, write in the comment section. See you in the next video. Bye. Good luck. And like all time, never give up.